Now, let's move on to the keynote speech by Dr. Volker Ziegler, Head of 5G Leadership and Chief Architect at NOKIA, on 5G Future X and Open Innovation, the next industrial revolution. Please welcome him on the stage with a big hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Kwon. This is a new era. It's the 5G era. And you know what? This era has started. It's exciting, and I want to share with you some of the key attributes and characteristics of 5G Future X vision of NOKIA, and in particular how it links into this very prominent theme of open innovation. Now let me say one more thing right up front. I just said the 5G era has already started. And you know, when I look at Korea, that's one of the places, one of the economies where it's really happening very, very fast, accelerated, and it's a very exciting journey. And again, it links into innovating in new ways and leveraging, first of all, I think, what is a major paradigm shift. And I think, Dr. Kwon, you made some such comment already. It's nothing short of the next industrial revolution. So when you look at us at NOKIA, we are passionate about cutting-edge technology and software, 5G in particular. We have a vision called 5G Future X, and I'll share with you all a little bit more about that. But what's really happening is we power up the next industrial revolution. And it's happening as we speak. And of course, when you go back in history, back to 1770, a long time back, starting with steam engine, moving on to the second revolution around electricity, and then moving on to IT. What's happening now is, I think, clearly exciting in a variety of new ways. Now, I'm a techie, I'm an engineer. I would probably start with mentioning topics, differentiating exciting topics such as cloud and robotics and artificial intelligence and blockchain. And that's exciting, but what is truly exciting, of course, is how this translates into change and impact and growth for economy and society, not just in Korea, but worldwide, right? That's part of the theme of this conference, and it really links into what I would call, or we call at NOKIA also, a topic of sharing economy, of new ways of innovating together. And when you think of sharing economy, this theme of innovation is very strong, but then also it's about speed, time to market, as well as probably being more efficient globally and as an ecosystem in new ways. And part of the technology change that I will share with you is exactly about this. Opening APIs, the way we build the platforms for the future, softwareizing everything all the way to radio. This is part of the groundwork, enabling and powering up, indeed, this next industrial revolution coming up. So what's 5G Future X about? What is 5G about, you could ask? And I've, with this chart, ladies and gentlemen, this is an attempt at maybe capturing and sharing with you some of the key themes and linking all this into, and you've seen I serve in the role also of Chief Architect of Mobile Networks, so I couldn't resist to also share with you a high-level view of what our architecture vision is. So starting at the bottom of this, when you look at this architecture vision, what you actually see is, you can see these cloud shapes. So this is about distributed cloud. It's about massive scale access in conjunction with trillions of sensors, right? And all this then linking really in conjunction with augmented cognition systems, processal networks, into what we call digital value platforms. And I'm aware that this is where a lot of the opportunity is. And when I look at many of the distinguished companies in the room, that's of course also where they would naturally fit in, not just in each of these technology domains, but then truly powering up new business models and new ways to engage and do business together. Now, what are the breakthrough themes? Now, this is what is shown on the upper part of the chart. The breakthrough theme, number one, I guess, no surprise, it's about quantum leap in radio. Now, when I say quantum leap, you know, it's clearly about innovation such as, look at NOKIA, we launched new chipset in Barcelona not so long ago, called ReShock. So this is like 3 times, 4 times more throughput when you look at RFIC. And then, of course, it's reducing size dramatically, right? Nanometer type of paradigm. And that allows you to be more power efficient. We reduce power consumption RFIC-wise by 50%. Baseband, likewise, right? Quantum leap in terms of not just power consumption, but also throughput. Now, for the engineers in the room, in terms of throughput, when you look at baseband, we can now do base stations that can give you 184 gigabit per second throughput per air-scale system module. So what does it mean? It means that we can actually build, ladies and gentlemen, terabit per second base stations, right? That's part of the 5G story. Now, the next big element really is AI, artificial intelligence, and truly seamlessly embedded across the architecture. So all the way from RFIC, massive scale access, of course, linking into augmented cognition systems to digital value platforms. AI, a pervasive theme, machine learning, deep learning, very powerful story. And it also links powerfully, by the way, another key theme we will have the chance to hopefully investigate a little bit, which is automation, right? The automation of everything, and it is a very powerful paradigm. Now, the third key theme of transformation really is about cloud nativeness. So this cloud transformation, and starting with the fact, again, that this is about distributed cloud architecture. So we move data centers to the edge, right? So for the automotive startups in the room, what we actually do is we would have data centers along highways so that we can really facilitate and power up autonomous driving and infotainment type of solutions in very new ways. And then last but not least, automation linking into slicing. So in case you haven't heard, slicing is one of the most exciting options that I think associate with flexibility for the 5G era. So it's about this idea of truly, if you like, instantiating thousands of virtual networks, right, for a given use case or for a given brand of a certain product and or consumer. So the options there are really limitless. And TCO saving, yeah, it's part of the story, right? Cost of ownership. When we talk to our operator customers, and as you know, we serve pretty much all of them across the world, it's a big theme, cost of ownership. But honestly, probably the more exciting theme is truly about generating growth and building momentum in terms of new business opportunity. And that's really what the next slide is about. So market opportunity, new value chain beyond what we've seen in the traditional communication service provider markets, right? So what you see on the left-hand side is a traditional market view in terms of CSP, communication service providers. And as you can see, it's kind of flattish, right? And that's true not just in Korea or in Europe, it's true worldwide. Now we see some growth with cloud services. Now from an operator perspective, it looks like the value captured, at least for operators, is somewhat limited. But now look at the new paradigm coming up, what we call DSP, digital service providers. And many of the operator customers, and some of them are in this room, also here in Korea, are on this transition, on this transformation journey, which is, by the way, very exciting, to what we call new DSP, digital service provider markets. And why is this exciting? Because it's where there is growth, where there is opportunity for significant revenue expansion. And when you look at the chart, this is cutting across sectors from factory through work sites, cities, logistics, transport, as well as health. And by the way, the numbers quoted here are from McKinsey, so they must be true. The other exciting piece, and just as another important comment, and that's particularly also true for innovation work we do here in Korea, all of this is happening in trial and pre-commercial engagement as we speak. So we have a variety of very, very encouraging trial setups in factories. So I'm from the German Southwest originally, and as you know, Dr. Kwon, we have many of these small to medium robotics companies. And you know what? All of them have robots that are still connected by cable. We can do better. We can do without the cable and with performance attributes in dimensions of resilience, and if you like, software-defined factory beyond, clearly beyond what any of the previous generations could do. So with this, maybe, ladies and gentlemen, another quick look at use cases and focusing on the early market. So in case you're interested, there's a lot of good work also out of NOKIA in terms of what these use cases are about. Again, not just from a technology angle, but truly from a value capture and business model perspective. And when you look at the very early market, it is a lot about dedicated, localized use case. There's a lot of focus on MBB, mobile broadband. We'll come to this. But as we now move forward, of course, a whole new universe of use cases is likely to come up, and many of them will leverage and exploit all the various performance attributes that go beyond bandwidth and beyond throughput. Now, which are these? Latency is one, right? Real-time kind of response. Reliability would be another one. It's one, by the way, telco sector has been traditionally good at, and we want to keep that up. And it translates, as you can see, into a variety of cool scenarios at home, in industry, but also at events. And by the way, if there's anybody who's doubtful why Korea would be a lead market for 5G, well, ever since the Olympics happened, it's very visible to the world that Korea is a lead market, right? So Korean operators, by the way, we would like to serve them with that. We're powering up immersive 5G type of experience, as well as some relevant security-related applications in conjunction with 5G. So very good stuff, and it's happening as we speak. So with this, let's come back to this theme of the market and what we'll start with. At the center of this chart, ladies and gentlemen, what you see is a broad attempt of clustering the applications and use cases. So a broad attempt at clustering in the sense of what you see is critical machine communications in addition to mobile broadband, and kind of also contrasted from massive machines. So what's the difference? Critical machine, this is an engineer's dream. Why? Because it's tough, right? Not only you have thousands, millions of machines connected, but you would wish to leverage attributes such as real-time behavior in conjunction with throughput, attributes of resilience, low power consumption, connecting thousands of these in an individual cell. So all this, I think, makes this a very interesting and challenging domain and opportunity. Now, clearly, when you look at early market, and that's also true for Korea, and you see it in the upper left-hand part of the chart, it's all about high capacity and ultra-high capacity kind of broadband opportunity. And through 2021, mostly in the 3 to 6, as well as the above 6 gigahertz bands. Now, the interesting and the good news is when you go back 2 or 3 years, there was a lot of concern. What was the concern about? The concern was maybe spectrum will be fragmented. Now, it's great to share with you all. When you look at this worldwide, the pattern is fairly homogeneous. So we have some activity, 600, 700 megahertz band, a lot of around 3.5, 28, and 39, and that's good news, because that's the way to build global scale and ecosystem. Now, end-to-end solutions for all three markets, obviously, high capacity and coverage, as well as ultra-high, and then last but not least also, and this is very relevant for markets where there's high fiber availability, what we call fixed wireless access, in conjunction with 5G, and we've made excellent progress with this. By the way, maybe one of the revolutionary aspects of 5G, just to highlight this again, is the fact that we can exploit millimeter wave spectrum. Why is this revolutionary? Because there's so much available, right? When you look at the ranges, especially below 2 gig, there's very limited bandwidth, like 20, 40, 60 megahertz allocations per operator and country. Now, when you go up to millimeter wave, you can allocate 1,000 megahertz. Now, of course, this is slightly offset by the fact that you need line of sight. That's the limiting factor. That's also why typically you would go for combination of high and low frequency. Now, with this, let's look a little bit more, ladies and gentlemen, at the 5G end-to-end future network requirements. And of course, there's probably 3 dimensions to be highlighted. One is mobile data growth. So there's the key driver, right? And it actually also is clearly a story where we smartly use the different connectivity options, and including Wi-Fi also, but cellular probably is where we've seen a lot of growth and continue to see one. And now with 5G, of course, what is one of the unique factors really driving this? Economy of scale. It'll be a huge ecosystem. Latency, that's the other key thing, I think, key attribute that you would associate with 5G. So where you need it, where it makes sense, you move cloud data center to the edge, and you have the corresponding protocols so that you can do, and radio front ends that you can do up to like 1 millisecond latency wherever it makes sense. Like for the robots or for autonomous cars, also some health applications, it's very relevant. So it's about a round trip time, if you like. And then, of course, last but not least is about the trillions of sensors that we are excited to connect. And I believe some of the companies in the room are active in that space, and to make sure that we have the effective mechanisms of signaling in place. And there's a lot of innovation happening. Now, we at NOKIA, as you're probably aware, we have iconic Bell Labs. There's also some Bell Labs research happening in Korea. So what we do is we come up with new concepts, and if we play it well, then our best ideas also make it to standard. Now, if they are more software, then it's just we go and run with these, independent of standard, that's also clear. But when it comes to radio, standards matter, and we are happy to also be one of the lead contributors for global standardization of 5G at NOKIA. Before we go, maybe you look at standardization a little bit more, let me share with you a landscape of use cases, and I think this is relevant for this audience because it gives you a nice overview in terms of not just application category and maturity level, like from industry at the bottom up to consumer, but what you also see here is some notion of cost sensitivity. So let me highlight maybe one line item here, since I know there's a lot of interest also in Korea around industries. So when you look at critical automation and collaborative robots, drones, or electrical grid type of protection, it's interesting, cost sensitivity is low. Now, is this good or bad? I think it's good because we can really go high value, specialized, even FPGA-based solutions right away, right? So it's a cool opportunity. And what the chart now shows you, and we don't have time to dive deep, is a rough overview in terms of throughput, latency, as well as reliability attributes, and then also clustered into like what cost sensitivity and deployment patterns are. And when you look around this, I think it's a nice way to visualize what the 5G and the end-to-end 5G opportunity is about. And all of this, and we'll come back to it, of course, links into exciting opportunity of open innovation. So there's not one player on the planet or in Korea who can do all this by themselves. So open innovation, and by the way, openness is a key element of how we build technology and architecture at NOKIA, and we'll come back to it. So I mentioned the term network slicing, so this notion of end-to-end virtual private networks, and I want to briefly come back to it because it seems to be such a fundamental key value enabler. And it starts, of course, with the slice requests, the attributes per use case, and you could imagine any kind of combination of these attributes. And so what this really is about is end-to-end virtual networks optimized for a specific tenant, right? And so this might be a specific car or car manufacturer. It might be even a specific model or group of users of a specific model. Why not? And kind of orchestrating for them the composable network and service resources such that they get the highly customized, personalized, localized delivery on demand, if you like. And this, of course, links into, ladies and gentlemen, a very new paradigm of value creation, a new paradigm of service level agreement, really. And therefore also, from the architectural perspective, orchestration and automation really are at the heart of 5G architecture, right? So back to standards, and I want to give you a quick update as to where we stand with standardization. And probably some of you are aware, so we have come a long way. So when you look at where we now stand, 3GPP, 5G release 15, that's pretty much done, even though we have some last piece of work that will be finalized on physical layer. It will happen through the end of this year. But then the journey goes on all the way to what we call, and by the way, NSA stands for non-standalone, just to avoid confusion, non-standalone, and SA is standalone, so this includes the 5G core. So standalone, once that kicks in, end of this year, that's where you can do the exciting use cases independent of bearer. That's where you can do quality of service control beyond what 4G can do. And this, of course, then links into associated use cases all the way to ultra-reliable massive machine communication by 2021. And so summarizing, we're likely to see end of this year, early next year, the first commercial launches of 5G, mobile broadband use case, but clearly the way ahead is drafted, if you like. Now we discussed standardization. Now very briefly, let me also share with you the other vehicles of collaboration and rethinking network architecture. So one way, it starts with cool ideas out of Bell Labs at NOKIA, and we drive them into standards. The other way is that we collaborate across the architecture, and you've seen a lightweight version of the architecture vision of NOKIA before. Now, driving this by means of vehicles of openness, right? And this, by the way, is one instantiation of open innovation, by the way, in a very special way. So it includes a variety of initiatives, and I'm happy to share with you that NOKIA is very active with many of these, and it's very exciting because it links into opportunity in terms of innovation, number one, but then also time to market, as well as probably smart ways of functionally disaggregating across the ecosystem. Now, having said this, we need to smartly play this also. We need to make sure that integration cost doesn't explode. So going to sub-VNF, sub-virtualization network function level may not make so much sense. We'll check it out. And of course, disaggregation architecturally does not always necessarily mean multi-vendor. So it's interesting debates. Now, the summary of all this is we are really committed to open innovation in a technology sense, and we are very open to test the waters in that spirit of accelerating the value capture and growth opportunity as we do have in this ecosystem coming up. And this now brings me to the always open paradigm in the bigger picture, ladies and gentlemen, and it's truly about bringing the flexibility of the 5G era. It's about events like these. It's about open innovation, open ecosystem network. And by the way, there's a challenge. There's an innovation platform exercise ongoing, hosted also by NOKIA in parallel. So in addition to the techie side, so openness initiatives, of course, it's about open APIs, making sure that others can build an interface with what you do. It's about open analytics. And by the way, this is probably one of the most powerful domains of them all. It's about what you do with the data. It links into this theme of data democracy and how we work together, and therefore into this very prominent theme. And this, I think, goes to the heart of this event, of open community and really collaborating and exploring opportunities to collaborate together. So with this, I want to thank you all, and back over to you, Dr. Kwon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ziegler, for sharing your thoughts and insights on 5G technology. Now we'll take questions from the floor, from the audience, so feel free to raise your hand to ask questions. 한국어로 질문하셔도 저희가 통역이 제공될 예정이니까 자유로이 질문해 주시기 바랍니다.
Yes, that's maybe helpful. There's a question, please. Go ahead, sir.
I have a question about the programmable network operating system. Do you have any tips about this kind of new technology? Programmable network operating system. You mentioned it.
Yes, programmable networks are one of the defining overall themes, if you like, of 5G architecture. So what's your question about? It's
a kind of, I know that some of California company explore the new technology of the networked operating system, learning into the embedded IoT, such as ARM core. Do you have any tips about some mention about that?
Yeah, I mean, the one tip I would have is cognitive network OS as an architectural domain is clearly one of the areas where there is a lot of innovation happening. It's at the heart of, if you like, 5G architecture. And I think it's exciting. Why? Because what's new with 5G is really the fact that we do softwareize everything all the way to radio. Right? So you could argue that the operating system goes all the way to radio, linking into the possibilities that cognition, this is artificial intelligence, embedded or non-embedded, really brings you, right? And it's powerful, just to make this real. So for the radio engineers in the room, it's true even all the way to beamforming and the way we would optimize beamforming working together with scheduling, the packets over the air interface. So there's very real meaning to orchestration and network OS, and this notion of programmability now linking into AI is very, very powerful.
Okay, thank you.
Tony, please. You might need a mic, yeah.
So I believe for autonomous driving, connectivity is very important, and I believe the infrastructure of connectivity will bring the autonomous driving technology to the commercial world early or quicker. But my question is for 5G on the highway, and how do you solve the problem for coverage? Because I'm not expert on the connectivities. I think 4G has problem, and I believe 5G will be much faster and can bring more data, carry more data. But in terms of real time and coverage, and how do you solve that problem, especially on the remote area and the highway?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So for the highways, I would argue it's kind of straightforward, right? Because highways are street corridors, so it's localized area of coverage. So in this sense, it can be easily done. Now, I love the question because now with 5G, we have a range of new innovations, how we would be able to also guarantee excellent bandwidth and low latency for not so densely populated areas. And let me maybe highlight one area of innovation. It's about, again, what we call massive MIMO and beamforming, the way we softwareize radio, because what we can do now is, with kind of phased array type of technologies, you have beams following individual cars or users in the rural area. You will love this in the autonomous driving sector also, and that's the powerful option we now have. And yet, notwithstanding, you're right, it's a fun challenge for the engineers to solve, but we have come a long way with this. And as said, now with phased array, softwareizing radio, all the way to the front end, we have new ways of tackling this, and it'll happen.
Thank you, Dr.
Due to time limitation, we'll take only last question for now.
예, 한국말로 질문을 드리겠습니다. 예, 미국에서 촉발한 그 망 중립성과 관련된 질문인데요. 통신업자 입장에서 망 중립성에 대해서 글로벌하게 또는 혹시 한국의 어떤 상황을 이해하신다면 한국은 어떤 정책을 가는 것이 좀 더 효과적일지, 또 통신업자 입장에서 망 중립성이 수익 모델이나 수익에 영향을 줄 것인데 그거에 대한 관점을 좀 말씀 듣고 싶습니다.
Yeah, I apologize. I need help with the translation. For some reason, I don't get the translation signal. Net neutrality. Excellent question. Thank you, sir. Yes, excellent question, sir. So net neutrality, indeed, we need to rethink the notion of net neutrality. And I think now I'm out of Europe, we have some interesting debates in Europe, and the German Chancellor actually made an insightful remark. I think it's on that journey of helping us rethink the issue. When you look at emergency response and services, everybody would agree, yeah, we need to give priority. So we have some areas where everybody in society accepts there's value in differentiating. And I think the opportunity now is, out of private-public sector exchange and with the regulators, to really rethink where is there value for society and how to smartly play this. At the end of the day, my sense is it'll happen, and technology-wise, we are ready. It'll happen so that we can give, let's say you have a bunch of kids playing Pokemon on the curb versus some very important delivery of medication by drones, right? Who would you give priority? In the evidence of doubt, you would prioritize the drone delivery. So that's the kind of scenario that I think we can convince folks easily that it makes sense and beyond. But the debate is on, so it's a great question. I think it's one of the areas where, first of all, it starts with educating what is the value, right, beyond the technology committee. And this event may be also very valuable in exploring what the value opportunity really is in the spirit of open innovation. We are at the beginning of a journey, but your question is great because to make this successful in Korea and worldwide, what it will take is very close collaboration also with regulators and the public sector.
Thank you, everyone. We'll end the keynote session for now. And thank you, Dr. Ziegler, for your speech. And everyone, please give him another big round of applause.